The online discourse by major AOS players about the Celebrity Spearhead match is largely negative due to production quality issues and saying things like, this is the Age of Sigmar launch, why so bad? But in reality, the Discover Spearhead YouTube video will be how everyone discovers Spearhead. The live stream was just kind of a weird thing for fun. The YouTube video looks great and explains Sigmar and Spearhead in like 2.5 minutes, looks really good. Standard GW high quality pre-recorded stuff, so I'm not personally fussed. But hey, what is this video? This is me saying I sat down and watched like 2 hours of 2 people playing the latest Age of Sigmar 4th edition Spearhead. Now that we've seen 2 people play it live, and we've seen a bunch of Warcom articles, I think it's pretty safe to say we know almost everything. The only things we don't actually know are like some of the twist cards and battle tactics cards, and the specific stats for all of the spearheads, obviously. But we know the game. Like, we can see how it will play pretty effectively at this point. So with that said, I want to kind of have a look, see what has been said, and see if, from what we've seen, what is it? They say in an interview it's very competitive and for veterans, but then say a bunch of stuff about how it's a great beginner game, lots of replayability, and then give a bad reason as to why it's replayable. I think once we read between the lines, we can see what's marketing speak and what's, So let's just watch the game to see which is true. So the commentator says he's played 7 games of Spearhead and thinks under an hour is very doable. AKA, he has not played in under an hour. And 7 games? Anyway, there's interactive points they point out. So every turn you draw a battle tactic card. You can either score the battle tactic card or do the action. These are kept secret, you don't show the opponent. Skaven seems to have a forward deploy, but also the commentators aren't letting you hear the players, so maybe he just moved. Both armies are using almost all of the characters from the Skaven Tide box. Stormcast Eternals don't have the Reclusians on the table. Skaven only has 10 clan rats on the table, forward deployed or moved, I don't know. 10 off the board of the 40 total you get in Skaven Tide. No Jezzails or Warp Blaster. With so many characters, there's no real magic being used, by the way. Their magic becomes 40k magic, which means a ranged attack, basically. But the magic module, dumb concept, but whatever, isn't being used here. The guy around twist is take the land, score 1 extra VP if you are contesting the large terrain feature in enemy territory. Cool. Plus, the underdog gets +1 to wound rolls against enemies contesting that large terrain feature. It seems like terrain is on this board to act as a game aid, not to act as terrain that will stop line of sight, as we may be used to it. The point of Spearhead is to have every model being able to immediately fight and do their thing. New twist turns up every turn in Spearhead, by the way, but not in the main game? Fine. Kip's favourite faction, by the way, is Orcs. His favourite book is Lord of the Forest. Yeah, the lion one, whatever it is. His favourite character is Gazkul Thraka. So obviously he prefers 40k and is just playing Age of Sigmar for some reason. Claudio's favourite book is Infinite and the Divine. The commentator thinks it's an obscure heresy book, don't know what he's talking about. Honestly though, as someone that regularly misspeaks in videos, I totally get that. His favourite character is some remembrancer from the Horrors Heresy, some poet guy. Didn't say his favourite faction, which is a shame. Faction identity is very real, and knowing someone's favourite faction should be mandatory. Like, kind of knowing someone's favourite faction is like knowing their horoscope, but instead of hippie chicks, we're geeky guys. That tracks. It's funny how no matter how elite an athlete you are, when you're playing Warhammer, you literally cannot look cool. Kip is from England, Claudio is from Switzerland. I don't follow wrestling at all these days. Who are these people? But they both seem like cool, chill dudes. So that's always fun to see people who act in a very bombastic way taken out of their element. Anyway, finally the commentators cut to some banter. It's good. Standard wargame chatter. Nice and fun, as you'd expect from any well-presented livestream. That's nice. They're using magnetic circular wound counters, which apparently were given out in the swag bag at the Dallas Open. These don't exist as something you can buy from GW, but of course many third-party options. Mortal wounds exist. They bypass all saves. All damage in Sigmar carries through the unit, unlike 40k, so 6 damage could kill 6 individual models. All objectives in Sigmar are sticky objectives, good to know. The crowd starts chanting something every now and again. Don't know what it is. Prosecutors move 12, 3+ save, 1 control stat. Charge 3d6, range 10 inches, rend 1, d3 damage. It's good to know numbers sometimes. I don't know what Age of Sigmar is, I don't know if these are good or bad. Clan rats have incursion, as we know. Rend is a big concern in Sigmar, by the way. If the game becomes too lethal or not lethal enough, the game skews hard into a certain type of play and against each armies. Likewise, mortal wound spam and the availability of mortals in general needs to be strongly restricted and generally high cost. These are just random thoughts I'm having as I'm watching. They didn't say any of this. The commentator confirms that same as 40k, now every unit will have an ability on their card they can do in big Age of Sigmar, not just Spearhead. I generally really like this concept, so that's good to see it's transferred over here too. We get a turn 1 charge for the Stormcast Eternals into the Skaven. Every model within 3 inches can fight. Claudio spends far too long deciding who to fight with first, because unlike 40k, the fight activation alternates. Charges fight first, and the active player gets to decide who makes the first fight, but then it swaps, so it's not just all charges fight first. This is good and does make the double turn less punishing than it sounds to most 40k players. But, has to be said, the double turn is still kind of dumb. Just go alternating activations by phases. Stop messing around with full I go, you go, alternating phases. It's so easy, come on, it's a guaranteed win. Anyway, he fights prosecutors into clan rats and only kills 1. The ref confirms there was only a single 1 on each dice. Poor Claudio, but Claudio doesn't seem convinced. Kip fights with clan rats, there's 7 left, 2 attacks each, into Liberators needing 4s. Wounding on 5s, gets 2, Claudio takes 1 wound from 7 clan rats. We cut away from the players, so we completely lose what's going on here. Pro tip, by the way, if your unit has recursion, like Skaven and clan rats, throw them away ASAP. They just come back. That's how you get their value. If you win the initiative, you don't draw any battle tactics cards, unless you're the underdog. This is big. You basically cannot score secondaries for a turn or use the extra abilities, which just goes to the devs admitting how strong the double turn is. I don't know the ins and outs of 40k and Sigmar super intimately, but the impression I get is that if you can't score secondaries for a turn, you are either absolutely stomping the enemy, or you cannot possibly win if you make that choice. Kind of seems like they've kept a broken mechanic broken for 9 years and are only now committing to nerfing it a bit. Will it be enough? Seems like they decided to commit to a weird complication. Next twist is a life spring. Underdog picks 1 objective or a roll off if no underdog. Gain an extra VP if you control the life spring objective, and each unit contesting heals 1. The commentators talk a lot at the same volume level as the players, so you can't hear anything for a while. Nice. Every game starts at 12 inches away in Spearhead, so it is intended as round 1 combat. But whoever goes second is guaranteed a charge, pretty much, so that's cool. Stuff continues to happen for another hour of game. It ends up being a pretty decisive win, although if the other player had managed to max score in their final turn, they would have been able to pull off a win, so not a complete landslide. I won't say who won, because this is something you could happily put on as you're hobbying and still kind of get the surprise from, so somebody won, maybe. Maybe they didn't, maybe they drew, who knows. The point of Spearhead is to have every model being able to immediately fight and do their thing. In concept, this is good. I like the idea of starting close enough that turn 1 lots happens. In 40k or kill team lingo, this would be as if your deployment is turn 1 of movement, so just deploy closer. Imagine if you could deploy anywhere in your half of the board, and then turn 2, everything kicks off straight away. I think this is a great concept in a vacuum without any other context around it, right? But Spearhead is a single board, same size as Kill Team, and you might only end up with 4 units on each side in some of the Spearhead boxes. Well, 3 in one actually. Which is even less than Kill Team's elite teams of 6. But the footprint of your units is really rather large. There simply isn't enough room on the board to make manoeuvring possible. You're moving, but are choices really being made, or are you just moving forwards and that's that? It genuinely seems to just be a dice roll-off. Look, it's only a single game, but very genuinely on this board size, I cannot see Spearhead being anything more than a learner tutorial size game to learn the basics of the game, as it almost removes the move phase from the game, right? Which it would be typical for us to consider the most important phase of the game, as that's the one that you control entirely yourself and don't get affected by bad dice. Now, I cannot speak to the larger game of Sigmar, but I must admit, as someone who doesn't know what is truly going on, it kind of really does seem like the game ends up as a scrum in the middle of the board, and then dice happen, and someone wins because of that. I do hope I'm wrong, and there is a large expression of skill outside of movement, but I won't comment on it until I've played 4th edition a bit. Additionally, I'm hoping that there is a large expression of skill in the movement phase in general. I'm not sure there is to the same degree I'm used to in smaller skirmish games. As Sigmar plays with almost no terrain, your choice to make a decision and limit your enemy's capabilities seems honestly highly limited. Just kind of some thoughts there as I'm watching and thinking, how would I play this game? Where are things fun and not fun? I'm fully intending to play Age of Sigmar. Like, I'm not making a statement either way here. I intend to play Age of Sigmar 4th edition, and I hope it turns out to be really fun. And the models are already really cool, we know. And maybe the skill expression comes out in ways I'm not used to from skirmish games, focusing more on activation order and grand decisions rather than movement or some such. I don't know. However, just to quickly summarise, I suppose, if I had to, from watching one game, it kind of seems like Spearhead's nothing. It feels like they put a lot of effort into it, but that is GW's MO. They put a lot of effort into their biggest sellers, which is beginners, because if you don't fund the beginners, if you don't have good funnels into the game, you don't have players in a decade's time. So it kind of seems like they've done well for that, to bring people in, and as I think everyone that plays Sigmar knows and looks at the view counts on Age of Sigmar YouTube videos, this is a great thing. I don't think it's for anyone that already can count to 6 on a dice face. I hope I'm wrong. Let's find out.